Um, okay. First question is quite simple. How does your usual day look like?
My usual day
Yeah.
is basically like I come to my atelier in the morning. Well, I have breakfast. I wake up, I have breakfast, and
Yeah.
these kind of things. Then I come to my atelier and I share the space with 3 other studios. So we usually have coffee then here in the morning, and then we start to talk a bit about what's going on. But my day at the moment is more that I'm trying to network for my project to generate attention and funding to actually do the work which I want to do. So like I'm basically in front of my computer most of the times, or on the phone talking to people and arranging meetings.
Okay.
So it's nearly like a boring office job what I have at the moment.
Okay, and are you talking about the We Are Human Rights?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I'm an activist actually, and because for me there's a different meaning to activism in the sense of like usually activists are seen as people who are going into public and shout and make something visible what hasn't been visible before, but then in a very, very provocative and very, very outspoken way.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly trying to do this, but like what I'm trying to do is not only showing the thing which is invisible, but also like if it's a problem, trying to find a solution and propose it through this. So for me, like I'm not particularly an activist, but I think I'm more a problem solver or somebody who likes or tries to solve problems. I think more like this kind of person. For my work, if I think about it, how does it influence other people? If I talk about this is Ecocide project, it was very, very clear. This project actually made other people aware of this law, and they started to work on the proposals which I made.
Yeah.
So I heard from several people who started to actually organize groups to bring it forward. But then, of course, I advertised Polly a lot with this project because that's what it was all about, to advertise her as a lawyer to bring the law to the UN. And she actually just yesterday spoke at the UN at the assembly for the ICC, so the International Criminal Court there in New York. And of course, I mean, I don't want to say it's because of me, but I think it did its part. Like, a lot of people started to know the law, and then through this we managed to give her more attention. I think this is, for example, an influence which can happen through art and design, as we make it very tangible, these things. It's two different things. It's the ecocide law is already going on for years and years. Like it's going on for 10 years already. Polly wrote it before, and it was in the founding documents of the ICC, and it's nothing which I came up with. If you read through the UN paper, it's mentioned in there in 1987.
Yeah.
So like, it's nothing particularly what I came up with, but what I did was just to give it a visual face, because then you can recognize it. And the project itself did kind of stop, but that's because of external parties, because of people who had difficulties with the project as it didn't go according to their wishes. So now it's I'm trying to find a different take on it.
Okay, but what did they didn't like about it, or did not?
Well, the thing which happened is like I worked together with an organization, and this organization, well, worked together. We met a couple of times to see how we can actually work together.
Yeah.
So after I won the René's Mates Awards, then from the academy, from the design academy, I got the call from this organization, and then they were telling me like, "Oh, how wonderful that you won and everything, but we have a question, like we have a little problem." I was just like, "Yeah, what's the problem? Maybe we can solve it." Yeah, can you take offline all your work? And I was just like, "I'm sorry, what? Like, why?" Yeah, well, actually, we want to have that you take off This is Ecosite project off, that you take it offline, that you take the This is Ecosite project offline, because we want to have it on our website. And I was just like, why? Like, this is very strange. Why would you want me to take offline my graduation work?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we want to have the traffic which it creates. We want to have that the people visiting our website. And then I was just like, okay, this is not the intention of it. It's not an advertisement campaign for your organization. It's an advertisement campaign where, let's say, awareness campaign about this law. And they didn't like that I told them. So this guy was shouting at me at the telephone and like saying, like, what the fuck? Why does nobody want to work together with us? Like, I don't understand. Everybody wants to do their own thing. And I told him clearly, like, it's not that I want to do my own thing. We can work together, but it's not an advertisement campaign for your organization. No. I'm talking about explaining a law. Yeah, they were a foundation about ecocide, basically. And so their goal was to... I'm not particularly sure what their goal was, but like they said they are doing educational lectures about this topic. I don't know if they, in the end they actually made. They did give some lectures. No, they didn't like it because then it was, they said that I'm becoming a concurrence, or is it a good English word? Competition. So they told me I'm becoming competition, and I was just like, how can you become competition in a social or like in this field where we talk about the same, and if we actually would achieve this goal, we would both benefit, because that's what we want, right? We want to have this law in place. Yeah. And he said, no, you're competition. And I was just like, what?
That's the craziest thing. Oh.
It's because there are, not all of them, there are really good organizations, really good foundations who does wonderful work, but there are foundations who just want to be a foundation. So like,
publicity,
they're not generating money for the cause, but they're generating money to be a foundation. And that's two different kinds.
Yeah.
And then there is another type of foundations or organizations which are the ones who watch. So they don't do anything, they just watch. Like, they say, like, that's what we do. We are witnessing the crimes which are happening. I'm just like, okay, you're witnessing, wonderful.
Wow.
So they don't want to take action. And this is what the problem was with the Ecosite project, because the parties I was involved with, they didn't want to take action. And you can understand me as a 26-year-old designer, I can't do it all alone, especially also financially, it doesn't work. You need to have partners to generate the budget to do those things, and second of all, you need to have the support, the international support also. But the law didn't die, like the law still goes on, because Polly is doing this separately from the project. So she's always campaigning. She's always campaigning about it, and she brings it forward, and she's actually on a different level, but that's her position. She's a lawyer. She should be the one to put it in place. It shouldn't be an artist, it shouldn't be a designer. A few people who I wanted to have on the stage. There is a wonderful a lawyer who actually he works on the tribunal for Yugoslavia, but he's the defense of the accused. So he defends the worst criminals in the world, basically. the people who are accused of like murdering 40,000 people. But what he does, why I wanted to have him on the stage, is because he's the person why the criminals have actually a defendant. Like otherwise they would be just trial without defendants. Because he said years ago, and that's why he's so important in this law field, he said you cannot have a whole system based on human rights if you don't give everybody a defense in a court system. So like that's why he's very interesting for this field, because he's internationally seen for head of states and for lawyers, a very, very important person. And he wanted to talk, but there's no money. That's a pity.
You have to pay him, or
no, but there are costs which have to, like, for example, I would have to bring everything to The Hague, then I would have to rent everything. But of course, it's stupid to say like it's not possible because of money, because you always find a solution. But then, for me, there were so many walls where I ran against, and then other doors opened. So where I said like I'm taking the open doors, because this is for me now more a solution than if I would try to constantly run against those walls, which apparently don't want that this goes further.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
So it was a bit like a difficult project. It's just gonna change. It's like it's not. Everybody is always so depressed about everything, and they're like always like, oh my god, then it's the end of plastic, concrete, and I don't know. It's not. It's just gonna be. It's just gonna be different plastics. It's gonna be different concrete. Like people are very, very pessimistic about these global changes. Like, oh my god, if we put this law inside, then so many companies will go bankrupt. But that's the same they said about slavery. The Culture of Fear project, this one is actually a quite difficult one, because I did extensive research into the way of how populists talk. How do they communicate visually, like how do they move, how do they repeat their sentences to actually achieve the communication you want to have. And I tried to find patterns in the system to reuse them to explain how easy it is to be manipulated. So then there was the Stripe Act Award, where I applied with it. And Stripe Act is from the Stripe Biennale, and they gave out an award for creative use of technology. So I thought, why not make an kind of performance installation kind of piece where you experience how easy it is to be manipulated, and visualize this and give it some kind of like something tangible. So with this project I made a performance kind of thing which explains Culture of Fear. And what happened when you participated in it, you went into a really, really dark room and you saw me sitting there at the desk with a light. And so I tell you like, okay, yeah, welcome to Culture of Fear. This is a social experiment. We're going to see how people react when they're afraid.
Yeah.
And now going through a procedure of sentences which people like Trump use, like, believe me, I'm the good guy, you know, like these kind of things.
Yes.
Oh yeah, then,
Mm-hmm.
and it comes to this point of like that I tell them, well, there's one catch with participating, like when you go behind this curtain, there's a really bad person. And I don't know what this guy is capable of, because I just know he's really, 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 like, he does really bad stuff. I mean, I don't know this guy. So like, what the fuck? He might do really terrible things to you. So then I said like, I cannot take this responsibility because I'm the good guy here. So you have to sign this contract that I'm not responsible of your participation in that sense. And it was a ridiculous contract. Every lawyer would tell me like, you cannot write this, because it's like, it says like you allow to be murdered and to be raped and those kind of things. But it was not about like this actual legal act, but it was more about the fact when you see on a piece of paper written that you might die, it already brings you immediately to this thing of like, oh, I have to sign this because I might die. So it gets in your mind.
Yeah.
And then when you participated, you got an object from me, which was a sensor which measures when you're getting afraid through the galvanic skin resistance. So when you sweat, when you're getting afraid, you produce sweat and produce this resistance of your skin lowers, and that you can actually measure. So you can measure when people are getting afraid.
Exactly.
So you entered the room, and then in the end of the long corridor, you have one single light. And when you walk further, and when you get just a bit afraid, the light disappears, and you're absolutely in the dark. So you have to calm yourself down that the light reappears. But when the light reappears, suddenly there's a silhouette in front of you.
So you get scared
it's
again.
the bad guy. So like, you don't know who this person is. This person might be just a dude from before who went inside before and walking around.
Yeah.
You already immediately assume that this is a bad person because one person told you.
Yeah.
And you signed a document, so like, of course. And so like in this short time, it took only 5 minutes, a lot of people freaked out and they were just like, oh my god, this is so scary, they were just walking through and were like, oh my god, what the fuck, I want to get out of here. Because you have to imagine, I made this in 5 minutes to them mistrust a person. And if you hear it every day, oh, this is a bad guy, this is a bad guy, these people who look like this are bad. You will mistrust them at one point, but not only one person, but the whole group.
Of those,
And through this you create this
separation.
culture of fear, of like where you say, you use the fear of the people and the fear you actually created to your own benefit. That's why then you get voted. Or why when you say like, well, we should put them all in working camps, nobody will say like, oh, yeah, it's a bit a stupid idea, you know? I mean, of course, they're the ones which stand up, but then most of them are like, yeah, of course, these are the bad guys. Why should we not put them in working camps, no? So, like, that's the dangerous part of it, how fear can become crazy in a sense. No, it's... this was for the Stripe Biennale, and then I always get, like, asked if I want to do it somewhere else. Now at the moment, there was a... it was supposed to be during Dutch Design Week, but since it's a performance piece, like I have to be there, and it wasn't possible for me to be there, and then we said we're gonna just move it to a different date because this person who wanted to hire it really wanted to have me as a person there, not an actor. But that's just, it's like you can rent it for exhibitions, and then you have the performance there. It's actually quite personal, I think. It's like, because of course I can't reach 200,000 people, but it's a bit more like the small scale approach of like one person experiencing it, and then they know what this term means, and then they will explain it further. So like adding factors into society to create people who know about that they might be manipulated. I mean, everybody or a lot of people had it. I had it also when Trump got elected. I was like, I'm scared. And I was just like, fuck, he got me. Like,
exactly.
It's this duality in the sense which is weird, because then when you realize that you're scared because of something somebody said, then you're like, they got me. You know?
Okay.
I think what art or design does is to bring elements into society which we didn't think about before. So like an artist can make this really crazy provocative piece, and then everybody will be, this cannot be done. But then he opens up a question of like, why can it not be done? You know, like, art brings always something new, and design always brings quite practical things into our society. So I think, especially nowadays, it's really important that designers and artists, and that's really my opinion, that they are working on fields which we need solutions for. Like if we think about, okay, we have this problem and it's in law or it's in our industry or this thing, I think then design, especially because we're working with industries together, we can implement solutions in this. And I think that's where we should focus on, and that's where the position of the designer, for example, should be in the society.
Okay.
Like, that's the thing which everybody always argues about. Is it art or is it design? But I think for me the difference between is that it actually isn't autonomous. It's not that I make it because I think it's nice. I make it for a client in that sense. Like, and my client can then be like, for example, with the Ecoside stage, my client was Polly. She needed a tool to communicate. For the culture of fear, of course, there were two, because there was Stripe, which commissioned me, but also then there is more like a target group, then, which you can see as somehow a client, because you do an experience for them, you design it for them, to really, so that the people you are wanting it to experience, you design it exactly for this person. So that's a thing where it becomes not autonomous anymore, because then you are, otherwise I can say, well, the culture of fear should be absolutely purple and blue, and because that's what I think. But then in reality, if you look at it, like, it won't make anybody scared if it's like this 80s color. So that's like, I think I'm not particularly autonomous. It's very much focused on target groups and focused on clients.
Okay.
Well, in the sense of like, should I earn money with my work? Yes, because that was the whole Ecosite project thing. I could have said I sell it. Yeah, make an advertisement campaign out of it, pay me 20,000 euros, and then use it, whatever. But I didn't want it. And business-wise speaking, it's stupid. Because business-wise speaking, if you would create this kind of profit, it would be very nice, because you could do more things. But there it was about an ethical aspect of it, which I very much dislike in current awareness campaigns. Like, now working on human rights, you have people who go to a country. They talk about how landmines kill people. And then they take pictures of the people who have no legs anymore and bring it back to Europe, print the pictures incredibly big and show the people who have been injured. And then, for me personally, I think that's wrong. Because, yes, of course, you create awareness, but this person still is suffering. So I think there you shouldn't, there it's about the ethics. You can't do this for me. So I would rather try to see like, oh, this guy can't walk anymore. Let's design a thing for this guy to walk again, or to help him through his daily life. And then I take this object, look, this is what I made for this guy. Then you're not working on emotional blackmail, but more on a positive kind of approach on it. So like, this is where I think like the double bind comes in a lot, because yes, I can say, I take a picture of this person starving in front of me and put it somewhere, earn money for it, and raise awareness. But I could also have helped this person, take a picture of me helping him, put it somewhere, and then earn money from it, because then I actually did something. I've been speaking to photographers about this who do work in Africa, and There is one who got quite famous through a picture of a man starving, like literally in front of him. He got quite known about the picture because it was then in the end it was for Red Cross or something like this. And I asked him, so isn't it really hard? Because there's a person dying in front of him. You could help him,
Yeah.
or you take a picture. And he was just like, that's the question of especially then journalism. Like, are you gonna change the situation, or are you gonna report the situation? So as a journalist, you're fucked because you can either change it, but then it's like you're not particularly reporting the truth with the picture anymore if you would help him. But I'm not a journalist, so that's why.
Yeah.
That's for me it's different. Like, but yeah, I agree very much with him that like, yeah, he could have helped this person, but then he would change the story of the picture he wanted to report. Well, I actually not in that I'm not that engaged in that extent in my private life because it's really heavy. It's really like, if I think about now, the projects with the human rights defenders, if you hear their stories, it's quite intense. So like for me, since there's so much happening during my work time actually already, I don't even feel the need of being engaged in my private life, because it's like something which is not a hobby. It's work.
Yeah.
You know, like that's why I don't feel like that I should be engaged in my private life, because I'm working on this. That's why it's my engagement in it. So if I would engage in my private life, then I'm like, just why? That doesn't make sense. It's free time. It's I want to go out. I want to not read about people dying or people being arrested. So I think that's why I'm very much quiet in my private life. Like I just have my time. I mean, I can imagine if I would be. Let me think. If I would be, I don't know, somebody who works in construction. You know, like I'm building houses every day. But I really feel like I have to do something for my community or my for human rights or whatever, for LGBT people. And then I'm going to engage because I really think I should help them to do something. But I'm a construction worker, so I can't make it my job. As designer or as an artist, you actually can make it your job to do those things. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the nice thing, because you're way more free. Like I can make this project, and after this project, I can also decide to just make chairs. But then, like for me, there's always something missing if I would make chairs. Why should somebody who makes, I mean, that's one thing that you can say. Why should somebody who makes a bank very successful earn a lot of money, but the person who does extreme social change shouldn't earn anything? That's a weird concept.
Yeah.
Why shouldn't be the person who actually made a whole community live in a better way earn way more than this one guy who makes a business very successful? Like there are different approaches on these things. Mm-hmm. For me personally, I just want to live. I don't need a lot. I just want to have my daily costs covered. And everything else, I don't care about profit, because it's not my dream of living in expensive villas or having expensive products. It's not me. But if I can live, if I would say I get a lot of money and I can live till the end of my life, so I can pay my basic costs, I'm still gonna do my work, because I wouldn't stop. It's weird. I'm not making the money to have a lot of money. That's then it's ridiculous, I think.